citizens! I am Phineas Hook, and today we're talking more about some of my favorite retro games. I mentioned in the last video that I recently recovered my old Commodore Amiga computer. Today we're talking about another one of my favorite games. Really, two of my favorite games. It Came from the Desert, Part 1 and Part 2. It Came from the Desert is a game loosely based on the 1950s horror film Them, which is about giant killer ants taking over a town. In the first game, the first half is about gathering evidence and trying to convince the townsfolk that there are giant ants living in the hills and that they need to do something about it. The game can almost get frustrating early on when no one believes you. The mayor won't believe you. What's all this fuss about evidence? Have you got anything to prove these creatures of yours exist? The army won't believe you. Who goes there? This is a restricted area, strictly off limits. You have to gather all this evidence and show it repeatedly to different people, and you have to match the right evidence to the right character, often at the right time in the game, in order to get someone to believe you. And the different people that you get to believe you represent the different resources you'll have in the second part of the game. Eventually, the giant ants are going to invade the town, and you need to be prepared. The best strategy is to attack the ants before they attack the town, but that requires getting a lot of people on your side during the first half of the game. Convince the mayor, and you'll have the police on your side. Convince a reporter, and you'll have the townsfolk on your side. There are some other groups like quarry workers and construction workers that you can try to convince to get on your side for a little extra manpower when it comes down to it. But the guy you really want to convince about the giant ants is the sergeant at the local army base. Convince him and you've got tanks, you've got bombs, you've got lots and lots of soldiers. It's also really important to convince this French guy Jacques that runs the airfield. Convince him and you get to use his airplane. Having access to the airplane makes it worlds easier trying to find entrance to the ant caves. If you don't have access to the plane, it's still possible to find it, but it's a lot harder. You know that they're using the mine tunnels, and by following the mine tunnels, you can sometimes find it either on foot or driving a tank. But don't count on it. It's way easier if you have the airplane. Eventually, you're going to have to start an all-out war with the ants. While the army guys and whoever else you've got on your side bomb the crap out of the ants on the surface, you have to find the secret entrance to the ant tunnels. Hopefully you've already found it before the big battle happens. But you have to descend down into the tunnels with your flamethrower, find the queen, and burn her ass to the ground. That sounds fun, and it is. But the second game has this added dimension that's so much cooler. It takes place in the same town, so they had to come up with some reason why the townsfolk wouldn't believe you, and you had to reconvince everybody. Is everybody struck with amnesia? Was the town's water supply poisoned with lithium and nobody cares? No. Enter the new enemies, the ant heads. They're basically undercover ant zombies. They tell you, no, don't worry about it, there's no ant invasion, when just in the prior game, they were going to arms with you against these suckers. It's because the ants are controlling their minds. Instead of trying to convince them with evidence of giant ants, you throw candy at them. And when ants come in contact with the sugar, they can't help themselves. They go nuts like crack fiends. Their faces melt off, and reveal the hideous ant head underneath. It's super freaking cool. Just like in the movie Them, the way to beat an ant is to shoot off its antennas with your gun. You have a limited amount of time to do this before the ant head attacks you. Once you've turned an ant head back into a human, you've convinced them and they'll help you. But there's one more piece to the puzzle. How are these people being turned into ant heads? The hospital. The hospital is evil. The ants have taken over the hospital through mind control, and they are actively turning people into ant heads. They're never exactly clear on how they're doing this, but if you want to stop it from happening, you have to infiltrate the hospital, either by sneaking in or getting yourself injured, finding a secret vault room, and putting in a code that you get from defeated ant heads. Bang, 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 bang. What? What happened? You saved me. There's just one other thing. I don't know if this means anything, but the number 50 keeps going through my head. Once you get the documents out of the vault, it tells you everyone they've turned into an ant head. Share that list with the people you have on your side, and they reconvert everyone to humanity. After that, it progresses pretty much the same way the first game did. Get the army and your band of volunteers to bomb the crap out of the ants, fly the plane over the desert until you find the entrance to the ant caves, up down into the tunnels with your flamethrower, barbecue the queen, game over, you win. Humans 2, ants 0. The first time you play this game, especially the second one, it establishes this great feeling of paranoia. You need to get a Pez dispenser from this kid in order to whip candy at people and find out if they're ant heads or not. Before that, the only thing that cues you into someone being an ant head is they say weird stuff. This can be something as seemingly innocuous as talking about how cold it is outside when it's 70 degrees, to something as overt. Okay, alright, you got me. I'm an ant head. So what? Big deal. There are cool little features in the game, like if you get stuck, there's a fortune teller you can talk to, and she'll drop you a hint if you don't know what to do next. In the first game, if you're looking for evidence and you can't find it, there are visual cues, like there are 3 volcanic cones in the game that look suspiciously like giant anthills. Probably a good place to check if you're looking for evidence of giant ants. In the second game, if you're looking for an ant head to defeat and you can't find one, there's this weird cult that operates out of the south of town. Talk to the cult leader, it sounds like a pretty good place to find an ant head. So in a game where it's not necessarily obvious what you need to do, there are little hints that you can pick up fairly easily through minimal use of brain power to figure out what you need to do next. So that's It Came From the Desert, and It Came From the Desert 2. Again, I would love to cover these in greater detail, and I plan to do so once I have a better setup. Thank you all for watching. If you have a retro game you'd like me to cover, leave it in the comments below and I'll see if I can find it. I might already have it. Thank you all for watching, and remember, never trust anyone with an unkempt, untrimmed unibrow. Thank you.